Welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. And the best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. And if you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is Bill Adsit. For his first 5 years of life, Bill was exposed to a violent father and two alcoholic parents. From age 5 to 15, he was in a residential school in the Yukon year-round. He went on to serve 37 years in the federal government in various departments before assuming his role with his own band, the Tahltan First Nation. As the former president and CEO of the Tahltan Nation Development Corporation, he established 30 joint venture operations with Canadian corporations. Under his leadership, gross revenue grew from $9 million per annum to more than $55 million. Bill is currently a consultant with Aero Transport and has a deep passion to help First Nations grow economically, collectively, and personally. Bill Adsit is a residential school conqueror. Join us now as he shares how his faith has moved him past deep hurt, anger, and adversity to achieve success in his business and personal life. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
You're welcome.
The last time I saw you was March 13th, 2018. And I remember seeing you, and you had this positive air about you. And I found your message it was filled with so much hope. And I remember leaving there thinking, I have so many questions. So it's taken me about 4 years to get back to you to ask the question.
Okay.
Because I remember we get Q&A, but I need that time to digest. But 4 years is a little long. So thank you for joining us. I'm excited to get going with you. So I really just want to ask you now, you have a story to share and it's very powerful. So I would like you to just start sharing your story.
Yeah. As you mentioned, both my parents were alcoholics. Father was extremely violent. And they split when I was 5, and my mother took my two sisters and moved to Wrangell, Alaska, which is just down the Stikine River from Telegraph Creek. And my dad took my brother and I to Whitehorse, Yukon, and dropped us off at the residential school.
Wow.
So we were in there from age 5 till I was 15, I believe, just about 16 when I left.
So how did that drop off go? Like, was it a hard?
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about it, and I still remember the day when my dad took us to the residential school. All I remember is he's off talking to this the principal of the school, and then the next thing I knew, he turned around to walk away and left me there. So I just remember running up and grabbing his leg and holding on as tight as I can, crying and didn't know what was going on, and he just kind of peeled me off of his leg and walked away, and I didn't see him more than maybe 2 or 3 times in the next 10 years. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. As a child, as a parent?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that question. I wondered how that went. Like, how does that happen? But all right. Yeah. I'll let you continue.
Yeah. I was in the school, as I mentioned, for 10 years. My brother and I were one of the 4 kids that never went home year-round. I was there year-round, except for 1 or 2 summers when I went with a supervisor for the summer. The rest of the time I was there, but never with family, really. My brother, although he was younger, he had the opportunity. An aunt came and picked him up and took him, but I was left there for the duration. And when I think about the residential school, I think of, I've thought about this often lately. During my tenure there, I'm guessing there was about 150 kids at the school. So during this time, I'm guessing there's probably 50 to 70 staff that were involved in teaching, supervising, whatever, administration. But out of all of them, there was only two or three that sexually abused me. So when I think back about this, I think, you know what? Most of them were good, but your experience as a child being sexually abused, that's all you think about. I mean, I don't think about the good, what other people did. So to me, that affected me quite a bit. And then the other, I mean, there's not everything was bad. We had a supervisor by the name of Ruben Huber that was really into sports. So he got us playing hockey. So because we were all at the same school for years, like from age 5 till I was 15, all of us played hockey together. So we were a pretty good hockey team. So that added to your stay at the school, even though there was bad, experiences. So, yeah.
Okay. How were you? So, of the three that didn't make your experience good, there was lots that did. But I think just in every sense. I mean, there's, were you treated? Did you get enough food? Did you like at nights? Did you, like, I don't know. I just, did you ever feel like the other 50 people that were taking care of you, did they do a good job or just a job?
A few of them did a good job, but I mean, we were always hungry.
Kids.
I can always remember they had a pantry there, and they always baked bread every day. And I remember us guys, we had to empty the garbage. So what we would do is we'd go in the pantry and put the bread into paper bags, throw it in the garbage can, haul it out to the dump, and we dump it, and then we take the bread back, and we'd eat that at night. So that was the one thing we did. Another thing we did was in the pantry they had cases of click and spam, that type of meat from years ago. So we used to go steal it by the case, and after hours we'd hand out this meat to everybody. And anyway, the funny part of this is when they tore the school down, all the empty cans, we used to throw them into the attic. And when they tore the school down, they pulled down the ceiling, and it was tons of turkey hams.
You had to hide the evidence.
Yeah. So, that part of it. Yeah, you're always hungry, but I mean, yeah.
So were there, you said you went home, I think twice a supervisor took you home, for the summer. Someone reached out to you, someone cared for you. Were there other people? Because I mean, if we fast forward how many years, you're a successful business person. Someone, and I think of, and I wrote it down, Proverbs 12, we talk about course correction. Someone corrected the course. Someone reached out to you. Someone, can you talk about some of the people that moved you forward?
My first experience was when they shut the residential school down. They just kind of put me out on the street, and they got me a place to live and renovate an attic with a bed and a hot plate. Now, supposedly at 15, I was supposed to look after myself, but I didn't have a clue about how to do anything. So somehow the local RCMP found out that there was a young kid wandering around Whitehorse unsupervised. I was 15 years old. So anyway, they picked me up and held me overnight. And the next day they made me a ward of the court and put me into a foster home, into a Christian foster home by a lady by the name of Carol Gates. So, and on top of that, they found me a summer job working at, it's called Hogan's store in Whitehorse in the sports department to keep me out of trouble. So it was very providential that things worked out like that. But,
Yeah. So I have to ask you, because your name is Bill. And I'm I don't think that's a Indigenous name. And I think there was a story you have told about you had someone reach out to you and say, we can't move this. We can't have you named Bill, or we can't have you named your real name.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I moved into their house and their husband died. So because she was living in government housing, she had to leave, and she moved and went back to Rimbey, Alberta, south of Edmonton.
Oh.
So I was going from foster home to foster home and ended up working in Cassiar, BC for this summer. And I got a letter from him asking if I would be willing to go to Rimbey, Alberta to finish my high school. So I didn't have any options, so I took it. So that was quite interesting because my first day in school, I got a call into the office by the principal, and he said to me, coming to the school, he says, you've already got 3 strikes against you. I said, oh, okay, well, what's the problem? And he looked at me and he said, well, you're the only Indian kid in this school. In those days, he used to use Indian all the time instead of, Aboriginal, whatever. So I looked around, sure enough, it's true. I was the only Indian kid in the school. And then the second thing he said to me, you're older than everybody else in your class, which is true. It's quite surprising. I only found out years later when I went through the residential school hearing, finally got to look at my report cards. I had failed grade 1 or grade 2 twice. So that was why I was behind. Then they said the third thing, your name Belfry will never work in this school from now on. You're Bill Adsit. So I've been Bill Adsit ever since.
So was your last name Adsit?
Adsit, Bill Adsit, yes.
So Adsit was always your last name?
Right.
Never
they
changed.
Just changed my first name from Belfry to Bill.
All right, well.
And it's been a problem all my life.
Has it?
Yes. Created problem with, with my passport because anyway, yeah, it's been a challenge.
Yeah. And you never went back?
To Belfry?
Yeah.
No. Because, after I left, I went to the military and then my career with the federal government. And because everybody knew me as Bill, I just used Bill.
Bill. It's easy.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
So did you ever go back? You mentioned you went back to the school. Was that for what reason did you go back to the residential school?
You mean after Rimbey? I never went back to the residential school. After they closed it down, I ended up in foster homes, as I mentioned.
Okay, yeah. So you went back for were they ripping it down, or was there something?
Oh no, it's just I just heard the story.
So how did you feel when you went back? What were you thinking?
Well, this is quite a ways in my story, but they had a reunion of the residential schools in Whitehorse, about 8 or 9 years ago, and all the kids got talking about what went on there. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I had a couple questions before I was going to move to a little bit about your professional, where you're working right now. Because I know, you're on this podcast because you are a Christian. And I when I go back to what happened at the schools, where were you with God at that point?
Well, when you think about it, when I got out of the residential school at age 15, there's what they call adverse childhood experiences. There's 10 of them. Like we just talked about alcoholism, violence, separation, emotional, physical neglect, incarceration is mentioned, abandonment. But there's 10 adverse childhood experiences. And by my calculation, I figured I had 9 out of 10. So when you look at the stats about that, what they say is if you have more than 5, you're in deep trouble. Yeah. So I ended up with 9 out of 10. And sometimes I think I had 10 out of 10. So, obviously I was an angry, lost, lonely young kid when I got out of the school. So
Yeah. And maybe we'll talk about it later. I'm sure you'll bring it up. We'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm gonna flip my notes here. You served 37 years in the federal government in various departments before assuming your role with your own band, the Tahltan First Nation. As the former president and CEO, you grew the gross revenue from 9 million per annum to 55 million. Yeah. That's an incredible amount of growth. And for any company, I think, did the corporation struggle with such a fast growth?
Well, when I hadn't been really involved with my First Nation, that was the first time I was back. The only reason I got involved is because I was working with Aboriginal Business Canada, and one of the board members that worked with ABC was a guy by the name of Jerry Asp, who was a TAHL TAN. And he had heard through the grapevine that there was a TAHL TAN working as a business development officer in Alberta. So they contacted me and asked me if I'd be willing to go up to Dease Lake, which is close to Telegraph Creek, to help them develop an economic strategy for the nation. So the ABC gave me permission to do that, and that's how I started getting involved. So I was there for a while, and then the next thing I know, they asked me if I would sit on the board, which I did. And then while I was still with the federal government, they asked me if I'd be the interim CFO, which I did. And then when I retired, they asked me if I'd take on the job as president of Tahltan Nation Development Corporation, which I did. And when I was there for a few days, because I know numbers very well, I looked at the financial statements, and this company was technically bankrupt. It didn't have any money. It had the contract. It was $13 million in debt. So my first suggestion was, okay, let's shut this down and start again. And nobody wanted to do that because, the company's been there for already 20 years about 20 years. So I said, okay, I took it on. So what I did was I phoned all of the creditors and said, TNDC is going into bankruptcy. I said, I'll make you a deal. I'll guarantee you 50% on the dollar if you let us survive. So they all did. So within a week, we went from 13 million to 6.5 million. That's all we had. That's our debt. And then the previous CEO went and had purchased 6 brand new Hitachi backhoes out of Prince George, and they never used them. They were sitting all over the province. So I phoned Prince George and said to the dealership, I said, I have 2 options for you. I said, I'm going to stop payment on all the equipment. You can come and pick it up. They're scattered all over BC. And then he said, well, what's the second option? I said, well, the second option is this. I'm going to stop payment, but I'll deliver them to your office in Prince George. So they said, deliver them. So we did, and we end up sending my crew down there. We ended up cleaning them all up, sold them we got most of our money back. So that was another 3.5 million. So out of that, now we only owned $3 million after about a month's work. So then we still didn't have any money. So I phoned Barrick Gold in Salt Lake City and talked to the CEO because that's the only contract we had. And I told them, look, TNDC is going bankrupt because you guys have underpaid us all these years and we can't afford it. And it's going to look really bad for the only First Nation working for Barrick to go bankrupt because you underpaid us. And then he says to me, what do you want me to do? I said, why don't you just give us the same rate except pay for all our fuel? Because we had a lot of equipment out there. And he said, okay, deal. So then that was the first deal. And then I went back and we still didn't have no money. So I phoned Barrick back the following week. I said, look, I still need help. I need a $750,000 loan. And he says to me, well, what collateral do you have? I said, well, we don't have any collateral except all that old equipment sitting at your site that's been there for years. And he said, okay, we'll take that. So we signed over the equipment and he gave us the money. And after that, things started turning around simply because our contract was starting to make money. And then there was all kinds of development that's happened during my tenure, which I can't take credit for, but it's just very fortunate. We had Nova Gold there. We had AltaGas with their Mica Hydro project. We had the NTL power line. There's lots of projects. So because of all of that work in there, we didn't have any company. So I thought to myself, we have to give our TAHL TAN members the option of other jobs other than driving truck or looking at camp and catering. So that was the reason why I set up the 30 different contracts. I set up contracts with bridge companies, road building companies, helicopter companies, everything, trailers, all of that, simply because I wanted our people to have options of other jobs and training. All the agreements we signed for, we signed to share in the profit share, jobs, and training. And it changed the whole direction of our nation from we had really high unemployment. There's lots of people out of work. After that, we had 100% employment. Everybody who wanted a job had a job. And as I mentioned, our income went from $6 million to $55 million just on TNDC, but $100 million when you include all the joint venture income that we got a share of too. So it was a real change. And even to this day, Tahltan Nation Development Corporation is still doing well. They still maintain some of the joint ventures that I set up years ago. And they're still doing well. So
and you still are employing, I mean, you still have like 100% employment on your nation?
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty sure it is. Everybody who wants a job up in the Tahltan territory has a job because, I mean, that part of I don't know if you know where it's located, but it's located in the northwest corner of BC, and it's referred to as the Golden Triangle because of all the mining activity up there. So everybody's got a job. Yeah.
Wow. And was growth that fast hard? I mean, because we just recently had someone win a lot of money, and we all sit back and go, "How that person's going to come into a lot of money. I hope they know how to deal with it."
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. The saving grace was that we had all these joint venture agreements, and under the joint venture agreements, the way it worked is I gave them permission to manage it. All we had a say in it. So that took away a lot of the work. My biggest problem was with Tahltan Nation, hiring and buying equipment right away because we had all these contracts. Yes, it was quick growth, but it was very worthwhile.
Well, incredibly exciting.
Oh yeah, no, it was an exciting time.
You brought so much to your First Nation group. Yeah. So you are currently a consultant with Arrow Transport Systems, and you work with 129 First Nations right now.
Yes.
What are you seeing or experiencing with those groups?
Well, my job with Arrow, I mean, what I do with Arrow is because I was president of Tahltan Nation Development Corporation, I got to know many of the mining companies. So they hired me after I retired from that job to help them with working with reclamation projects for other mines. So basically, that's all I do. And the other job I had, as I mentioned, I worked with it's called Indigenous Advisory Monitoring Committee, set up by the federal government to monitor the building of the TMX pipeline from Edmonton to Burnaby. So along that line was 129 First Nations. And my job was economic development to help them access contracts on the TMX pipeline. But recently they moved me from that. I am now still with the federal government on contract, but I'm working with the 29 Marine First Nations, 25 on the island and 4 on the mainland. Okay. So, and again, it's to do with the TMX, the pipeline.
So just securing contracts.
Securing contracts and helping to access the government funding for various initiatives that they have.
Wow.
Yeah.
You retired from one job and you sound busier than ever before.
Well, I have about 6 jobs, I mean, I'm chair of the Tahltan Heritage Trust, and we've done well, and I sit on a couple of boards, one with Manulife and Axiom, and another with Primrose Lake Trust as an independent trustee. And well, I do lots, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, do you have any struggles? I'm trying to think of the question. Like, it can't be all roses, or can it be?
Well, I mean, as an Aboriginal person, I guess what I struggle with recently, as you know, you've heard about these graves that have been discovered, unmarked graves that have been discovered in Kamloops and Williams Lake, and it's been when that came out, I was struggling with that. It brings back a lot of memories, right, of what happened, and even though we didn't go to the Catholic Church, still the experience that they had, whether it's in the Catholic Church or the Anglican, whatever church group, it was all, in a lot of cases, it was the same, and they weren't treated well. Yeah. So, I mean, and then I struggle because I see the struggles that a lot of First Nations have, especially you get to know their situation, the 129. I talk to most of them, but I really don't know all of their struggles. But in general, I can see First Nations, most of them, they don't have the capacity on the reserves to run these development corporations. Economically, it's a struggle for them, right? And not only economically, but socially and emotionally, because, I mean, it's only recent history that his residential school closed down. I think the last one closed down in 1997.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it's my generation right now, I mean, that we took the brunt of it. Yeah.
Mm. Do you, you talk about the First Nations that you work with. Do you ever share your own story with them? Because I feel there's a good success to your story. You took some of those people that reached out to help you, and you took it. Do you ever? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't really. I mean, when you think about Christianity and the First Nations, I mean, I've thought about it quite often. To me, it was a diabolical scheme when you think of John A. Macdonald using the churches to run the residential school. So because of all of this that's happened to First Nations across Canada, a lot of them, churches don't have a very good reputation. And it's very, very difficult. I don't push it myself because I know how people feel about Christianity. I do my job to the best of my ability. I treat them with respect. I don't. I just know what my people went through, and I'm the last one that's going to ever abuse them in any way. So, I mean, I don't talk to them much about it unless I'm asked, right?
Okay.
And not many people ask. So,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you share it because people will ask you, you have a very, your presence is very positive. Your stories are very good. You laugh, I look at, I know a little bit about your life. It's, you've raised some good children, people have got to ask you, like, how'd you do it? Right?
Well, I mean, I get that more not from the Aboriginal committee, but more from the non-Aboriginal committee about, yeah.
All right. So I think I'd like to ask you, I had one more question about just no professional, because you know what, I will wait for that. We're going to move to a little bit about your spiritual story. We've talked a little bit about it. You've dripped on us a little bit, but can you share a little more about your spiritual journey and your healing? Like, how did the healing begin for you?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, when I got out of the residential school, I was an angry, angry young man.
Yeah.
And when I ended up going to Rimbey to high school, I mean, I tried my best to fit in. And then, I did pretty good. But during my time in high school there, that's when all of this rebellion started to kick in. and I kicked over the traces and quit school and joined the military and got married to a beautiful lady, Val. We've been married for be 56 years this year, so that's another story I'll tell you. But so anyway, I ended because of all of this anger. I was violent, and I ended up getting picked up and taken to Edmonton to the municipal jail for the weekend. And it was there that I finally started thinking. I hated Christianity because of what happened to me, right? But they did tell you the story about Christ and God and how he's available if you ever need him. Well, at this point in my life, when I was in jail, I got to really thinking about life. I had so many regrets about the way I had lived. I'm facing time in jail, could lose my job, lose my family, lose everything. And I finally decided, you know what? There must be some truth to Christianity. So that's the first time in my life I prayed. And I am just, when I think back about it, I just think, what changed? What made me change? But you know what? I think it's the fact that I asked for forgiveness. And the other thing is, to me, it was an attitude change, an instant attitude change about, all right, I got to do better. Somehow, I mean, it's a mystery. It's a mystery, really, how God works in the person's heart. But anyway, and then since then it's been a long growth, slow growth, but over time, I think the only way anybody heals is to forgive. You can't carry this anger around in you all your life and expect to change. You can't. So, I've forgiven the people who abused me. There's another story I can tell you about that, what I did there too. But, to me, that was, and then, as you mentioned earlier, people, the support that we had, Val and I, when we both became Christians. I should just mention, when I came back out of jail, went back to United City and told my wife I became a Christian in jail, and she says to me, I always wanted to go to church, but I knew if we started doing that, you would leave. So we both changed. She was waiting for me to change.
How old were you?
28.
28. Wow.
Yeah. So
Val's pretty awesome.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. Yes, very, very good. So, anyway, that's, and another thing, I should tell you this story too. Even though I had become a Christian, I was still angry, and I was a scrapper, right? I always wanted to fight. So I went in New York City. I took Taekwondo for 10 years just to be tough. And what I found out was I wasn't as tough as I thought I was. I always got beat up. So I tell you, after 10 years of this, I am not fighting anymore.
That's good.
So I haven't come near it for years. So that was a good. When I think about it, I just think, what a strange way God works at times. Yeah.
I don't know much about Taekwondo, but I think there's much more than the fighting. It's there's much more to that. So you were sent there for 10 years for a reason. To Taekwondo.
The guy that taught us wasn't so much into the spiritual aspect of Taekwondo. He just taught you the Taekwondo, and it was good. He was very good. Changed my whole attitude.
Yeah. So, now, just a little bit about, you said something about you had a story on forgiveness in people.
Oh yeah. I had tried to find my abuser, when I worked for CRA, and at the time I couldn't find him anywhere. I mean, and then when the internet came up, I typed his name and I found him, and I wasn't sure what to do with it at the time. We were living in Sherwood Park, going to the Sherwood Park Alliance Church here, and there was a group that was there. It was run by this young kid compared to me. I was about 40-something. He was 23 years old. He was head of the group. Smart young man, and he had lots of problems, and he went through. So anyway, I told him what it was. I said, I found the guy. I was going to phone him and really give him heck. He said, don't be surprised if he tells you it was all your fault. Don't come back crying next week and say you're all brokenhearted because the guy wouldn't accept it. And it's exactly what happened. When I phoned him, and I said to him, told him who I was, and I told him what he did to me, and he said to me, "Well, you said it was okay." I said, "But I was only 9 years old, and I was just couldn't get in, no apology, no nothing." So, but I mean, again, you still have to forgive, right?
Yeah,
so,
that would have been hard.
It was hard. But he was wise. He said, "Don't come back crying."
Yeah.
If you get that response.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Because forgiveness is up to you.
Exactly.
It's
up to you. You can't. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh. Now you talked a lot about forgiveness, and you suggest people seek forgiveness. You talk about joy. You have an acronym for joy.
Yes. I was trying to put some semblance of really what happened and how does a person change? What changes you?
Yeah.
So in my life, I mean, and I'm sure it's true of everybody else's life, you're going to change. You need help, right? Yeah. So in my case, when I say joy, I meant Jesus first. That's the only thing. That is the first step in my healing was that. Accepting Christ, asking forgiveness, forgiving others, the attitude change. That to me, that was the starting point. Without that, it's very difficult to change on your own. And then when I mention others, I think of the J-O, others. I think of, first of all, other people. My wife, first of all, she was so patient with me. And I'm going to tell you this other story. When we met, all we did was party. So we really did not know each other very well. So because I was such a handful, we got talking about one day, and I told her about my residential school experience and why I was like I was. And she had her problems too. So she got talking, and she said, "Well, I just got out of reform school when we met." So here we were. She was 16 and I was 21, and we got married when she was 17 and I was 22, and both with problem backgrounds. So we always say if there was ever a straw vote taken at the beginning of a marriage, we would have been voted the most likely not to succeed. So here we are today, still married.
That's, because when I think about, I talk a lot about surrounding yourself with people.
Right.
And here you are, you marry someone that has the problems, like you guys are coming together, you both have problems.
That's
Whereas,
right.
It's interesting that, and you both changed. I mean, you came home and said, I want to be a follower of Jesus. And she's like, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
It's a good, because, sometimes there's people right in front of us.
Yeah. So when you think about others, she was the first, right? And then during my career, it is amazing how the Lord has put people. First of all, I mentioned about the RCMP picking me up in the foster home. And when I was in the military, I was still a rebel. And we had a Christian sergeant that took me under his wing and tried to help me made me go to school during the days and work at an evening so I get most of my grade 12. And then when I was in CRA, I had then when Transport Canada after the military, again I had people there that I still remember. Dennis out of Winnipeg, I can't remember his last name. He was so good and helped me with education, etc. And then went to CRA. A guy by the name of Don Massey helped me. They arranged for me to go to university to finish my degree, U of A, to get my BCom major in accounting so that I can get a promotion. And then Aboriginal Business Canada was great. There's people there that I still remember to this day. So everywhere I went, the Lord put others there to help.
I love how you identify people, like you have named them. Have you ever reached out to them and thanked them?
You know what? I don't think so, because I mean, when I think back, some of these guys have passed,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the acronym Why yourself.
Okay.
I come to the conclusion, what's the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? All of this, whether I became a Christian, I've got everybody helping me, I still had to do it. You have to take it in yourself to do the work. You have to make the changes yourself. Like an education. I didn't even finish grade 12. And the only university that would take me when I wanted to leave Transport Canada was Trinity Western on probation as an adult. So I quit my job and moved there for 2 years and on probation for 1 semester. I had to work hard because in my situation, the fear of failure was a driving force. I could not afford to fail. I've got a wife and 3 kids to worry about. So then I went to, transferred after that, after 2 years to Edmonton to work for Canada Revenue Agency, and they put me through university. And that was a struggle because I never had grade 12. But I got through. So, I mean, the effort to do that and the effort to change is always a struggle. I mean, I read so much about it. People with adverse childhood experience, they say you never get over it. I always tell people, I think I'm 99% good. It's the 1% I worry about.
Oh, I love that you have so much humor. You are a joy. So that's, just joy. Jesus, others, and yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your joy and your changes, you changed the whole direction of your family, because you and Val could have went one way, and the choices you made and I mean, Jesus, others, yourself, everything changed that direction. What advice would you give others who are feeling limited to choice? Like, I can't do that. I don't know. Oh, that's probably, I don't know. What's your advice?
Well, for me, it was an attitude change. I mean, I struggle with this with the First Nations. How do you begin to get people to change? There's always all of these programs across Canada about helping First Nation change, but you know what? Programs don't work. It's an individual decision. In my case, it was an individual decision to accept Christ, to change my attitude. And because of that, my attitude changed. My family, we brought up our family different. All our kids all do well. So now we have 8 grandkids or 9 grandkids and 8 great grandkids. And, all of them, we've got them in to go to Christian schools. And it's changed. I mean, as an Aboriginal family, it's, I think we're doing well. Yeah. I just wanted to mention to you too, I hope you asked me the question about my experience going through the hearing in the Yukon about the residential school.
Oh, yes. were you invited to attend? Were you part of? How did that happen? And then tell us.
Yeah, because the reconciliation under that, I was the first one to be asked to go in the Yukon to be interviewed about the residential schools. So that's the first time I had to sit down and really think about my experience and write it down so that you can do your presentation to them. And to me, that was very, very moving experience. Just going through that, and that's where I found out all of this information about myself. About my school records and all of this. I didn't know anything about that. So anyway, I go through the whole hearing, and he asked me all these questions. There was a lot to do with the abuse, right? They concentrate on that because it was a dollar value that they were setting on that. So anyway, at the end, his name was John. He says to me, Bill, he says, I am so glad to see that you're a residential school survivor. And I said, you know what, John? I hate that word survivor. To me, it sounds like a victim mentality word. I said, who wants to be a survivor? That doesn't sound good. And he says, what do you call yourself? And that's where it came from. I said, I'm a residential school conqueror. So that hit him. And he says, I've never heard that before. So
I was texting my daughter today that I was when I was talking to, and I said, he's a residential school conqueror. I said, those are his words. She's like, I can't wait to listen.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of answered this, but because I believe you were in jail for the weekend and you decided, like, I want to follow Jesus. And so the question is, at what point did you decide your past circumstances stop defining your present future?
Right then.
Yeah.
That's what I say. I don't understand it. How the attitude can change over the weekend. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that my life was perfect after that, but it was an attitude change.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like you have put in a lot of work. And you can correct me. I don't know if you're do you read all the leadership books, or are you the guy that you talk to people, you ask for help, you do the work?
I don't think I've read any leadership books that I can remember. I don't know. I took leadership when I was in university, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just do what I do. That's,
no. And I think that's amazing. Just your attitude, you made the change. It just, yeah. Because I think there's some people who say, I'll read the book. No, do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think God gave me a brain for numbers. And I know numbers very well. I can look at financial statements and know where the problems are. And that's where my strength comes in working with other First Nations too.
All right. Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, we are, I'm going to ask you just a couple final questions. I know that you are involved with LeaderImpact. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved and what your involvement is.
Yeah, we got involved, I think it was about 2000. I'm not sure of the year, about 2006. My daughter she got involved with LeaderImpact first. And she ended up winning on a tour.
Global exchange.
So then she asked us if we wanted to go on the one to Pueblo. So we put our names, they put our names in, and then they accepted us, and my wife and I went there. It was a great experience. We got to meet quite a few of the leaders in Mexico, got to meet the agriculture minister. I had a chat with him about, because it was an Aboriginal person, he was very interested in the struggles that our Aboriginal people have in Canada, and what they have there are very similar. So we got to know them very well. So to me, LeaderImpact Group was very, I think that was a very profitable experience for myself. Mm-hmm. And then after I got back, they asked me if I would be interested in going to Saskatoon and taking this speaking course that they offered. which was really helpful. And because of that opportunity, I've had lots of opportunities to speak, especially prayer breakfasts.
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah. So, I mean, and we're a supporter. So I think they do a good job.
Good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, as you know, Leader Impact is dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. And as you continue to move through your own journey in life, and it is an amazing one to listen to you, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
Yes, that he's treated everybody with the respect they deserve. And, my wife and I, if anybody phones us, we help them. I want to be known as somebody that's generous, and because of God's generosity to us. So yeah, no, I am. I'm so grateful, thankful, on how life has turned out. In every way.
Wow.
I can't complain about anything, and I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And my last question, unless you want to tell a story, do you have any other story you've missed telling? I have one more question for you.
Okay.
All right. Well, my last question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
My wife, my family, my church. Actually, I'm proud to be Canadian. I think we live in a great country. I don't always agree with our leaders, but good country, and and the ability to help First Nations. To me, that if I can help them in any way, I do it. Yeah. I want our First Nations to. I want them to be successful and change, and that's not even about money anymore. It's about healthy, emotional. You know what I mean? Yeah.
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 I think that was, you talked about in your bio, you said you have a deep passion to help First Nations grow economically, collectively, and personally.
Yes.
That's
yes.
Wide range. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you for spending the last just over 50 minutes with us. I have looked forward to this, to see you again, and to hear your story. You have an amazing story of just forgiveness, and it takes hard work to change our attitudes. And I mean, we can't do it without God. And so,
yeah, I mean, what you just said, it takes hard work. I mean, to change. I mean, once your attitude can change instantly, but it's the work afterward to make it right.
Yeah, it's daily.
Yeah, I have a plaque on my wall by Charles Swindoll. You want me to read it to you?
I do want you to read it.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. This is the one that's on. You want to see it? It's here.
Okay.
It says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we'll embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. So that I have that on my wall, and that to me, that's really the key, changing your attitude.
Yeah. And that is a lovely way to end. Thank you, Bill, for sharing with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So this ends our podcast with you. But if anyone, and I hope everyone enjoyed their time as much as I did, if anyone wants to engage with you in any way, how can they find you, contact you?
They can I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook.
All right. You're on Facebook a lot?
No, not often. But I don't post anything, but I read people's posts.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill, for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Well, if you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you are not yet in a Leader Impact group, we would love to have you. Check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com. Or get in touch with us by email, info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us. And remember, impact starts with you.